French sports people are speaking out about a planned budget cut to the sports sector less than 6 months after the memorable Olympic and Paralympic Games. The government plans to cut funding by 33% compared to last year, though sports represented just 0.2% of the budget. It's prompted over 400 athletes to sign an open letter in French sports newspaper L'Équipe. Well, I'm joined on set by Ayodelé Ikuesan, who's a French sprinter. You're one of them who's really angry about this decision by the French government. A few examples were given in that open letter in L'Équipe, but could you just tell us and our audience what would the consequences be for this cut in funding?
So the consequences is that in sport in France, the clubs is working with volunteers mainly, and so it's gonna impact all sectors. So the federations also, all the athletes, the support they're having from the federation, from the ministry, and so those athletes they spoke and they wrote a tribune because for the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games there were a major financial support, and there were major companies that helped them and to support them. There were many sponsors that wanted to be part of the Olympic adventure, and so the sports and athletes don't want to go back to a period that we knew before the Olympic Games, which we were talking about poverty, we were talking about depression among athletes, we were talking about the volunteer support and in clubs. Well, you have those people just they're working, they're helping, they're really helpful, but they don't have any contract. And so that's the main point of the Tribune, saying that we should not go back to where we were before. French people were really happy about the Olympic Games. We were behind our athletes. We were very proud of them, very proud of all the medals that they won. And now the thing is that we shouldn't just forget everything and go back to, as you said, a budget of the sport ministry that is 0.2% of the whole French budget, which is really low already. So we believe that even though the situation is not the best that we knew, those cuts are not a good signal for the sport industry and for the French people and all the athletes that all won medals in this summer.
And you mentioned the Olympics and Paralympics. It was hoped actually that those games would be a turning point for sports in France. Macron put in place what he called legacy measures. And now all of this is happening under the newly appointed sports minister, Marie Barassac. She was actually the Impact and Legacy executive director of the Games Organizing Committee. I'm sure you see that as quite ironic.
Yeah, it's quite ironic, but like some athletes, we talked before, we speak out before the end of the Olympics, and we were talking before the Olympics already, saying that we should be really concerned and very vigilant about this legacy, because we were raising issues in sport before the Olympic Games, and we were saying, okay, so we had more money because we had to organize those Olympic Games and Paralympic Games in France, and we were waiting for any guarantees that would show that we have a real legacy. Well, it's a politic issue and it's a politic fight because as the athletes are saying in this tribune, France is not a sport nation, and this was like a debate that we used to have in the previous years, in the previous months, and also during the Olympics. And yet it's quite ironic because it's a political fight with the new prime minister because it does not believe that sport is useful for the society, and that's why they are proposing those budget cuts because they think that we're just asking more means because the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games is over, which is not the case. The case is that we believe that this ecosystem needs more funds because we're talking about federation, talking about clubs, we're talking about associative organization. And we know that sport, physical activity is helpful, and is helpful to reduce diseases like cardiovascular diseases, cancer. It helps increasing productivity. It helps the well-being. It helps a lot of things. And So this is the fight that we're now facing. And yes, I know it's quite ironic because our Minister of Sport was in P2024 team. But you saw Macron. Macron said that he agrees with the athletes, that he promised a legacy. So my advice would be for him to speak to his prime minister and make sure that we don't have those budget cuts.
Well, exactly. I mean, do you have faith that there can be an agreement? Because Macron's come out and said, "Okay, you're right," you know.
I don't know. I know that the Senator Michel Savin proposed an amendment that was voted in the Senate, increasing the sport betting tax that could just provide 113 million to the sports ministry budget. And there's another amendment that was adopted in the Senate also. The first thing is that we hope that those amendments will not be rejected in the joint committee coming on in the end of this month. But I don't know. We need actions. We need acts. So he spoke in the news. He said that he agrees that he promised a legacy. So now we're waiting for this legacy, and it's a huge tribune. 425 athletes signing a tribune. You had another tribune from Landes with more than 6,000 people who signed this tribune, which means that we know that there's a massive budget cuts. Not only in sport, you have in education, in health, in culture. And so what we're saying is that those things jeopardize our public services,
right.
And we need to fight collegiately against it.
Right. Well, we'll be covering this story as it develops, I'm sure. Ayodelé Ikuesan, thank you very much for speaking to us on France 24.